Welcome to the business of photography. And for those who don't know me, I'm Loren, and I've been a pro photographer for 40 years, more than that. And I worked at 7 newspapers. I was a freelance commercial photographer. I had a multimedia business doing video and websites, a pet portrait studio. I've done weddings, portraits, and I now sell my fine art photography at my gallery in New Jersey and at art shows up and down the East Coast. And I'm a past president of ASMP New Jersey's chapter, and I've studied the business of photography for years. And so officially, I'm not an attorney. So anything that you say, if you end up in court, or anything I say, if you end up in court, you can tell them Loren said it was okay, but it won't get you very far. Okay. One of the most important things is, as being in the photography business, you can't do it alone. And I highly recommend getting involved in an organization. And these are 3 of the big ones: ASMP, which tends to be more for publication photographers, corporate publication, that kind of thing. PPA, which tends to be more the wedding, portrait studio, that kind of photography. And National Press Photographers, NPPA, is for mainly newspaper and magazine photographers. If you're just starting out in business, I highly suggest PPA. It costs less than $30 a month, and you get $15,000 in equipment insurance, which is a pretty good deal. So check those out. We'll talk a little bit more about them later, but I think they are great resources and worth checking out. So what it really comes down to is, what's it take to be financially successful as a photographer? And you have to have a base proficiency in photography, but I think even more importantly, a master in marketing. And the most successful photographers are not always the best photographers. They are the ones who are great at marketing. They build a brand and make it recognizable to their target audience. And I've seen some pretty bad photographers do quite well because they're able to get themselves out there and make clients happy. And one of the reasons they do that is because they think of their professional photography as a business. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is running your photography business as a business. And so if you sell photography, you have a business. That's it, right? And you better treat it as a business. And there's several important reasons why. Number one, the government requires it. And 2, you'll be more successful. So anytime you're selling anything, that is a business. You have to think of your photography sales as a business. You'll come off more professional and you make more money. If you just are thinking, I kind of do photos sometime, you want to buy some to people, you won't get very far. Okay. So I've broken down the business of professional photography into 3 main categories of use. Commercial, which is photography that is used to sell a product or promote a product, service, or idea. Editorial, and retail. And retail is photography commissioned or purchased for display or as a product. So as far as I can figure out, if you're out making pictures, they fall into one of these 3 types if you're trying to sell it. And that doesn't mean you have to be exclusive to one type, but as we talk later, you'll see that the more refined your product, probably the more successful you'll be. So photographers make money one of 2 ways: either by an assignment, which means somebody hired you to shoot something, an event, a person, a product, whatever, or on spec, meaning speculation. So you go out and make pictures, or you have existing pictures that you sell, and it could be prints or for publication, advertising, websites, whatever. So the ideal is for someone to pay you to shoot something, then you're able to shoot those images as spec, or you're able to sell those images as spec for the rest of your life. In the good old days, that's how many publication photographers plan for retirement, selling life's work as stock. That doesn't happen much now. Stock prices have plummeted, as has assignment work. So what photographers used to sell for $200 now sells for $2 as stock. It's really gone to hell. So you need to choose an entity in which to set up your business. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly here, but it comes down to sole proprietorships, which is just one person. The bad part is the owner is personally liable for lawsuits filed against the business. So if somebody sues you, they can have your house. Not a good idea. Partnerships, again, regular partnerships, you're still personally liable. Not good. S corps, some people like these. I think they're a pain in the ass. C corps are a tremendous pain in the ass because the company gets taxed and you get taxed. So you probably don't want to get into that unless you're into massive corporation, and then even those are going to LLCs. And an LLC is what I think most photographers should set up their business as. And it can be as a partnership or an individual. There is, because of, depending where you live, this year there is a tax break for having a partner in your LLC. So I just took my wife on as a small partner of mine, a minority partner. But it separates the business from the owner. So if the company gets sued, they can't take my house in theory. Little tougher, and it's taxed not as a corporation, but to the owners. So I'm the owner. I pay the taxes separately. The company doesn't pay tax, and I pay tax. So whichever type you want to set up, you should talk to some professional about that. Both a tax attorney, maybe, or at least your accountant, and see what's best. LLCs, attorneys will tell you they need to set them up for you. I've set up several on my own. All you do is fill out forms. If you're doing an LLC just for yourself, I recommend just doing it yourself. If you're taking on a partner and doing it with a partner, you should have a partnership agreement, and I think that is vital. One of the first companies I had, I started with one of my best friends, and he decided to move to London with his wife. And so we ended the partnership. And there were some things that we disagreed on how we should dissolve the company. But we had a written partnership agreement that we both agreed to at the beginning before we started. And we pulled that out and read what it said, and then we're both okay, and we're still friends. Had we not had that written agreement, we wouldn't be friends anymore. It's just that simple. So, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just what happens when you dissolve the thing? Who gets what? Or, can it continue? And there's plenty of boilerplates online, free, but you might, I highly recommend if you're partnering with someone, each of you have your own attorney review it, so neither one of you feels slighted, because once you have it in writing, you just feel better. So one of the most important things to realize, no matter what you're doing, as if you're selling photography, is the government wants paid, right? And you better pay them. And it varies by state. Everybody's going to have income tax, no matter where you're at. And so if you sell something, you need to pay income tax on it. Depending where you live, there could be sales tax, and sales tax can vary. New Jersey, which is a tax-heavy state, the law says that if you sell something and hand it to your client, you have to pay sales tax. If you don't hand them something physical, you don't, generally. So if I sell somebody a print that hangs on the wall, I have to charge sales tax. If I sell them a photo that they're going to use on a website and they download it from my website, I don't charge sales tax. So no matter what, you need to set up your business and get a sales tax ID number, which is, every state is pretty easy. You just go online and fill out their forms. And then you have to file whatever their minimum is every month or every quarter. So I do art shows in multiple states, and almost every state except Rhode Island, my favorite place, you have to have a sales tax certificate for that state. which means that every month or every quarter, I have to go into every state's sales tax login and tell them that I didn't do any business in the state that month or that quarter. It's a pain in the ass, but you have to have it. So, you know, keeping track of all that kind of stuff just drives me nuts, but it's part of it. If you're you know, you need to be careful if you're selling prints and you ship them out of state. Do you have to pay sales tax then? It depends on your state. So you need to find out from the state what the deal is on that. And every state is different. So, you know, there's no way to tell you what's right and what's wrong there. Okay. So you better have insurance. And depending on what you're doing, you may have to have it. So if you are shooting a wedding, you may find out that the venue you're going to requires all vendors to have liability insurance, and you have to show them send them a certificate. And if you don't do it in advance, some of them will ask you as you walk in the door, "Where's your insurance certificate?" which names them in case something goes wrong. Pain in the ass. If you're renting space, landlords, most of them will require it. If you go to an art show, a lot of art shows will require it.
Loren, do they tell you in advance how much liability insurance you have to have?
Yes, usually. So it's usually $1 million to $2 million. So I used to have a $2 million, and I have the company I use. I could just go online and say I'm going to take pictures at a wedding venue. I can just put them in as a my word. Pardon me. I can just, you know, say this is where I'm taking the pictures, and I print it out and I can send that to them or send them a PDF or whatever. So most insurance companies do that so that they don't have to take phone calls, and it makes it real easy. But you gotta have it. You gotta have it.
How long does it take to have it?
How long does it take to what?
How long does it take to get it if you have like a wedding coming in like 3 months or something like that?
Oh, usually 10 minutes to get the certificate. And if you call an insurance company and say I want to buy it, it'll be effective the day you call them. So yeah, insurance companies, you know, they'll sign you up the same day, depending on what it is. If you are renting space, they'll probably ask for what year the building was made and what's it made out of and what's next door and, you know, all this crap. But you should have some time on that. If you're just going to a venue, you know, you already have the insurance set up, or you can set it up. There are companies that do per, if you only do like 2 or 3 art shows a year that require it, there are companies that will insure you only for those art shows. And so it doesn't cost nearly as much. But the price is dependent on what you're doing. So, you know, if you're doing an art show, it might cost you $100 per show. If you're doing, you know, I pay about $8,000 a year in insurance between my van and my business, my liability, my equipment. And so equipment, if you are selling pictures and you currently have your equipment listed on your, say, homeowner's insurance, as soon as you start selling photos, you better check to see if that homeowner's insurance still covers you. Odds are it doesn't. So you need to have either a special rider through your insurance company or get separate photography insurance or equipment insurance.
What do you think about the PPA's insurance? Do you think that's adequate? That's kind of what I've been counting on for my equipment. And they think that with their membership.
Yes.
But I've heard that it maybe is not very good.
Well, so PPA.com, which is one of the organizations we talked about, has, as part of the membership, has insurance with it, $15,000 worth. but it is on, it covers you for the value of your equipment based on its age. So it's not replacement value. So if you have a $2,000 lens that you bought 5 years ago, that lens is not worth $2,000 anymore, it's depreciated. So it might now only be worth $400. So you're only gonna get $400 from the basic insurance. They have the ability to up that to, you pay, if you pay a little bit, I think, don't quote me on the numbers. It depends on how much coverage you get. But it might only cost you $200 or $300 a year to get insurance that covers you for replacement value. So I'd highly look at, you want to have replacement value, because you have to be able to prove how much your equipment's worth, even though the list price says that lens is $2,000. A used lens is not worth $2,000. So that's where it's kind of iffy. So
Thank you.
sure.
What company do you use?
So I have all of mine through the Hartford, but I have my equipment, my liability, my commercial auto, everything is through the Hartford.
That's why you.
And I have a policy that covers me overseas for all those things too, because I do a lot of workshops, international. So one thing you need to think about is you're not selling your photos, you're licensing them. You are actually licensing your intellectual property. So when I sell a 40 by 60 inch print, the only thing people legally can do with that photo is hang it on their wall. They can't resell it. They can't take a picture, make a copy of it and put it on the internet. They can't, legally, they can't put it on Facebook. They can't make a copy of it and sell more prints. And so, anytime that I license a photo, doesn't matter what it's for, there's paperwork that says what rights they have to use that photo for. And now some things, things have changed since 20 years ago when every little instance was listed. Now I may license a photo for unlimited use, but I maintain the copyright, which we'll talk about later.
If I buy a photo from you, right, I'm only licensing it. My kids and stuff, if I want to give it to them, they have no rights to it. Is that how that works?
They have the right to continue the same usage. My paperwork says that you have the same usage that your heir or whatever the heirs are.
So it's transferable, I guess is what the word is, right?
Depending on the usage.
It depends. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So, you just want to make sure that for every transaction you do, you need to have the paperwork. So if you're doing assignment work, for instance, first you want to send them a quote. Here's what I'm going to charge you. Then when you deliver the photos, you want to give them a delivery memo. This is what I'm giving to you. This. So the quote has the rights on it also. The delivery memo has the rights. And then when you send them an invoice, that has the rights also. So you need to be stating your terms all the way through. So as a basic, it's what you are going to do, how much you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, when you're going to deliver, what you're going to deliver, and the usage. Now the usage, some people get all caught up about that and don't want to mess around with the usage. I understand that, because that can be a stickling point with some people, some buyers. But I still give them the words of here's what you can use it for. And so if it's simply hanging on the wall, that's fine. That's what it's used for. If it's for corporations, they're the worst. They want unlimited rights and the copyright. I almost never will give away my copyright. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Advertising firms understand this, and they're the only ones that are decent to work with, because they work the same way that photographers do. they work in as projects. So something that they're doing now, if they create an ad and it's going to run on TV 25 times, that's how much they're getting paid. If the company decides then it's going to run another 25 times, the ad agency gets paid again, the photographer gets paid again. And everybody along the line does. Everybody else in the world doesn't do that anymore. So it's a real pain in the ass. So this is my basic invoice, and it's called invoice/license of rights. And for whatever the event is, you know, here's what I'm charging, here's what it costs, here's your rights, and then there's a full page of rights that are attached to that also. And so this is generated by my invoicing software. For prints, I give everyone a certificate of authenticity, which sounds so very, very important, right? But it simply says, this is the print that you're getting. This is how it was made, limited edition. And you can, you know, you can use it for, you know, hanging on your wall and all of that. So these organizations that we talked about at the top have great paperwork templates. They're a great place to start, and all of them have free ones that you can download. Some of them are a little more intense than you might want, so you can either adjust them to what meets your needs, or, you know, as always, have an attorney check it out. But the attorney's going to make it, you know, bulletproof and sometimes too scary for clients. You know, the most important thing is maintaining your copyright. So anytime you take a picture, as soon as you make that picture in the US and most other countries, you own the copyright to that photo. You don't have to do anything else. So if somebody buys a copy of the photo, you've licensed them the right to use that photo for whatever you told them they could. But you maintain the copyright. You always want to maintain the copyright. That way you can sell the photo again. You can license it again. And unless you have something special and somebody pays you a hell of a lot of money to have the copyright, you should maintain the copyright. So again, you don't have to register the copyright. But if you do, before first publication, you can, if you register it with Copyright Office in DC, and then you can get more damages after an infringement. And if you're infringed upon and you've registered it, things like your attorney fees will be paid by the infringer. But like I say, you don't have to, but just don't give away the rights to your photos, because you are throwing money out the window. My favorite example is, many years ago, I was shooting for the U.S. equestrian team, and I was taking pictures, and Dan Reeves, what the hell, Superman, whatever, Superman Reeves rode by, right? And I shot like 5 frames of him, right? And 2 months later, he fell off a horse and broke his neck. I sent those photos to my agency, and this year I haven't gotten a check yet, but it might be the first year in 20 years I haven't gotten a check for those photos. I mean, just time after time, they just sells and sells and sells, because who's got a picture of Christopher Reeve riding a horse? Loren does, right? So, you know, if I had not kept my copyright on that, you know, that photo made me kind of $12,000, $15,000. And I haven't done, you know, all I did was send some slides to an agency in New York, and they sold them. You know, they made more than I did. But had I not kept my copyright, which of course, when I got the assignment, they said, we need the copyright. And I said, no, you don't. You know, and I tell the people that, no, you don't. You just want to be able to use it for whatever you want to use it for. I'm okay with that. You can use it all you want, but you can't resell it. People have to come to me if they want to sell it, and you can't give it away to anybody who might buy it. So I always maintain the copyright, and it's just real easy to say, that, you know, their attorneys are going to say, we want the copyright. Well, the reason they want the copyright is because it has value. Well, if you want it, then you pay for it. nothing's free in life. So if they say we want the copyright, you come back and say, I'll give you unlimited rights to use it, but I maintain the copyright so I can use it too. Now there might be some instances where there's privacy things or something like that I won't be able to reuse that photo. Then it might be okay to give away the copyright, but not too often.
Well, Loren, how do you establish the copyright of a photograph? If I take a picture today, do I automatically own the copyright today?
Exactly.
And I don't have to have it registered someplace?
Exactly.
I can just claim it as copyrighted.
It is copyrighted. Anything creative that is created, the moment it is created in public, it's copyrighted. So if you write a song and you sing it on YouTube, you own the rights to that. People cannot steal it off of YouTube and use it.
So
if you only sing it to yourself and nobody else hears it and it's not recorded in any manner, then there's no copyright. But anything that's recorded or presented in public is immediately copyrighted.
What if I'm at a workshop and 5 of us all take the same picture? We all claim copyright to the same thing.
Right. Absolutely. Because they are different. Unless your cameras are exactly, the lens is exactly the same. If you're a foot different, it's a different photo.
Okay. All right.
Do
So
you have any advice about educating clients? I actually recently lost a contract over standard copyright language in my contract that they wouldn't sign because of the contract, specifically because of the copyright.
Yeah, I've lost several jobs for that too, and they're ignorant, and so I will tell them I need to maintain the copyright, but you can have unlimited use. And when they say we need the copyright, I say, why do you need the copyright when you have unlimited use for it?
Right.
They can't answer that. They say, well, because we need to. And I'll say, well, that's because you can make money off of it, and I can't. I don't mind being a little combative, and that's what it really comes down to. Now, someone will say, well, we want to have control over it. Okay, we'll have paperwork. If you don't want me to use this, it's very common. I won't resell it to your competitors. I won't resell it, to somebody. If there's people they don't want to see it. If I'm doing a corporate thing and it's in a place where they don't want it's a secret layer they have with trade secrets going on, they're probably having me sign a non-disclosure agreement, which would include I can't sell these photos elsewhere. At that point, would I lose the job over copyright when I know I can't do anything else with it? Probably not. But you never know. When I saw Christopher Reeve riding by, I didn't know that was going to be a valuable photo, right? You never know. But if you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, that cuts you off anyway. So there are times, but if you hold your guns to the copyright, you are going to lose some jobs. There's no doubt about that, because there's ignorant people out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was pictures of minor children, so it was complicated, and I had already agreed not to, distribute them and put them anywhere. But I still was surprised that they had a problem with the copyright part. Anyway.
Yeah, it's usually an attorney who says we want this, and then the minions don't know and can't do anything about it. So yeah, let them have it.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that?
So Loren, you'll probably mention it upcoming, but the difference between digital files, the rights versus the prints, because I've a client or two I've gone back and forth with my creating prints for them or giving them the digital file, one versus the other. No difference.
Doesn't matter what form it's in. You own the copyright to the image, and so it doesn't matter what form it's in. If you give them a digital file and you tell them what usage they're allowed to use that for, that's it. Doesn't matter if it's a print or a digital file. Somebody mentioned Facebook. Facebook does a copyright grab, sort of. If you put a picture on Facebook, they say they have the right to use it for anything they want, including reselling it to anybody they want. or sharing it with anybody they want. That's horrible. You know, I have a friend who was working for a newspaper in South Dakota, and he took a picture of a homeless person walking down the street, and it was kind of an interesting shot. Sold it to a stock agency. They sold it to the National Enquirer. The National Enquirer ran it with a story on heroin addicts. The woman wasn't a heroin addict. She saw it, sued National Enquirer. National Enquirer says, not our fault. It's the ad agency. The stock agency. It's not our fault. It's the photographer. The photographer had to pay $300,000. $300,000 out of the photographer's pocket. He didn't have $300,000. He's probably still paying it. I mean, you know, it's been a few years. I'm sure he's still paying. But he didn't have the rights to use her photo, and he lost the copyright when he sent it out to let anybody use it for anything. And so, you know, if Facebook has the rights to share your photo with anybody they want, you know, people are going to sue Facebook, but Facebook's, you know, you said they could use it, so it's on you. You know, doesn't matter how that photo's used, it's on you, the photographer, not on Facebook, the mega company, right? So, you'll notice a lot of people who, and I do this frequently, but often not enough, is rather than putting a photo on Facebook, I'll put a link to my website with my Facebook post. And then the photo shows up coming from my website, not being on Facebook, but as a link. And the courts have determined that that is not Facebook's property, so they cannot resell it. And the same with Instagram, by the way, because they're owned by Facebook. And almost every social media platform has the same wording. If you ever look at the terms, you know, they can use those photos for whatever they want. That's bad. That's bad. And why do they do that? Because they know they're valuable. They know there's money in them. Why should they get all the money? Why shouldn't the photographer get at least some? You know, should get it all, but at least some. So, you know, it just proves there's value in photography. But if you give it away, there's no value, right? And the more people who give it away, the lower the value becomes of photography, which is what has happened. But that's a whole different story. Any other questions on copyright? I can talk for 3 days on copyright.
Loren, it's Bob. So do you need to put the copyright symbol and your name on it or anything like that in a watermark or somehow embedded in the metadata? Nothing. Huh?
Nope. The only thing, I mean, you know, that alerts people that you're aware. So, you know, so here's a good for instance. So no, you don't have to, but it's a good idea to. You should always put your copyright name and your website, your email address in the metadata of your photos, anything you put online, at least in the metadata. They can strip it out, but at least you can say it was there. So when you sue them and you find it, you know, you can at least then say, well, they should have known. And most companies do know. So remember when the congresswoman was shot in Arizona, and you know, some wacko shot her on the street, right? And killed a little kid at the same time. So the parents of the kid gave news organizations a copy of a photo that a studio photographer had shot. And it ran everywhere. And the studio photographer hired an attorney and went after all those companies for copyright infringement because he owned the copyright to that photo, which he was correct, he did. All of them paid him. They don't even ask. They just start sending checks, right? And the word got out that this happened, and the you know, the photographer was correct in his thing, but in what he was doing, but he did it in such a way that it looked like he was taking advantage of a tragedy, and so his business was boycotted. His studio went out of business because nobody would go there anymore because everybody thought he was taking advantage of the tragedy. You know, had he set up a fund and put, you know, 50% of the money coming in, which was a lot, into a fund for the victims or you know, whatever, he would have been fine. But he was pompous and said, "This is my photo." You know, and that all actually started at Columbine. yearbook photography is news organizations know that you can't take a photo out of a yearbook and run it in a newspaper. You can't take a photo off of Facebook and run it in a newspaper. And so, I spent a lot of years in newspapers tracking down yearbook photographers to get permission to run them in the newspaper. But, all of those things, if you put a photo on Facebook, you put a photo on Instagram, that does not mean it's public domain. The public cannot use it. You own the rights to it. You can't, people cannot just download it and use it because it's on the internet. Doesn't work that way. A lot of people think it does, but it doesn't.
Question.
Yes.
Yes. So if I take a photograph and there's something in the background, because I understand like the Eiffel Tower is copywritten, so you're not allowed to take photos of the Eiffel Tower or something like that. Do I have to be mindful of the background of certain photos if there's graffiti or art that I don't, infringe on someone else's copyright? Have you run into that?
So that's a little different. Yes, if you ever watch any of these reality TV shows, when they go into a house, if there's artwork hanging on the wall, it's blurred out. Watch, they blur it because of copyright infringement. They don't want to pay copyright. They don't want to pay any fees to the artist of the art hanging on the wall. Buildings are different. They're not copyrighted. They're protected by, most of them are protected by, oh my God, my poor brain. It's not copyrighted. It's the, sorry. But it's different copyright. It's, pardon me? Trademark, thank you. Yes, which is a totally different thing. So yes, if you photograph like a globe and use it for anything, if you don't pay the globe company the rights to photograph, to reproduce that, they'll come after you. They have people out there looking like crazy, and they're protecting their copyright on the drawing of the globe, and they're voracious. So trademark and copyright are different, but trademark things are that's a whole nother ball game. But
what about a mural on a building? So
pardon me?
What about a mural on a building? That's architecture, but it's still art as well.
It's art, right? It's the mural is protected by copyright. Absolutely. Yes. So depending on how you use it, there are exceptions for education. Say, if I'm using a photo of anybody's photo in a class, that's okay. If I'm using if I'm selling photos as fine art, it's usually okay, and that's how you get around the copyright laws for some things. But commercially, there's no getting around it.
I had a question about people. Like, I always take these forms to get permission because I'm worried about having someone's art, photograph, and then they're coming back at me. I know there's differences maybe in public property, but I still think I worry about it.
Well, so again, that's different than copyright. That's a privacy issue, and if you take a picture of someone and you use it in a commercial way, you need to have a release from that person, or from buildings. Buildings are the same way. You need to have a property release or a signed release from a person to use their likeness in a commercial manner, which insinuates that they're endorsing whatever commercial thing you're using it for. So if I'm taking pictures for advertising, I have to make sure I have a release from everybody who's in the photo.
And that goes for a piece of artwork, right?
For a piece of artwork, absolutely. Because that's a copyright infringement. So all you have to do is send the artist, hey, I want to use your photo, and I'm gonna, I saw your photo or your painting on a wall, and I'm gonna put it on my website. Do you mind? They'll write back, say no problem. Few people charge, but if you don't ask, I know a photographer who has one person on his staff. He makes $200,000 a year on copyright infringements. He just has a person who just digs into the internet and finds his photos all over the place, sends them an invoice. He doesn't even say take it down. He just sends them an invoice, and real companies pay. Other ones will argue with him, and then he sends the nasty letter, and they're like, so they either take it right down or they pay, because real companies, any attorney knows you can't do it. You just can't grab a photo and use it.
Okay, so if I have a photo of somebody without permission, am I allowed to put it on my website, but not for sale, or not at all on my website?
It's gray area. You can, if it's part of editorial use, if you write a blog post and say I was out walking down the street and made this nice photo, yes. If it's if you're selling it, probably not. If you're using it to promote your website, that's the gray area. That's where the courts are still up in the air. So is that promotion or editorial? So if it's on the homepage of your website, it might be a problem because some judges have determined that that's promotion.
Yep.
If it's on the inside page where you're just showing photos that you took today, a gallery of photos, won't be a problem.
Okay.
But, you know, highly recommend if anybody ever calls you and says, don't use my photo, just take it down right away. Just, you know, unless it's something that's amazing, take it down, because you know, the hassles are well beyond whatever. So,
Loren, I try to ask people before I take their pictures for portraits, because I put them in my portfolio and, you know, senior pictures, that kind of thing.
right.
You think that's okay?
Well, you know, a verbal agreement is as good as the paper it's written on. So, you know, any attorney will tell you that's worthless. You know, both NPPA, I don't know if ASMP or if PPA has, so there are apps that you can get on your phone, and, you know, you just have somebody's, you know, you just call it up and type in their name and have them sign your phone, and there's your release. You know, it's crazy simple. So, you know, do I get releases from everybody I photograph? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If I know I'm going to use that in any commercial way, yeah, I better. So, you know, when in doubt, get it. If you're trying to sell portraits and you're doing portrait work, yeah, you better. So, you know, as part of a studio, your paperwork should say that you have the right to use their photo as part of your promotion. Okay, it's that simple. You know, that's all the words. You know, I'm going to use it for promotion of me. You know, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is probably a separate class, but I was just thinking, like, from a street photography perspective, I'm not sure about approaching people to get releases and stuff like that. So if you're going to take street photos, it's probably better not to use them for commercial use unless you can get some kind of release.
Exactly.
Okay.
Legally. Now, I was just in Cuba in March. Are the people in Cuba that I photographed going to see those photos? Not likely. If they do, are they going to come after me? Not likely. But they could. So, you know, you're taking a risk. How big of a risk is what it comes down to. Usually not real huge, but could be.
Thank
That's
you.
why you have insurance.
Well, yeah, you need to read your insurance policy too, because some might, you know, say, well, if you didn't do proper paperwork up front, we're not going to cover you. So, you know, that's part of what you need to make sure your insurance covers you for too. Because not all of them are going to, you know, if they can't, they won't. You know that, right?
That's for sure. Yep.
So part of the copyright, you can actually put it into your invoice before you give it to the person that you're going to be taking pictures of?
Absolutely. So that should be part of the quote. So you can't put it in after the fact and say, oh, by the way, you know, I'm going to use your photos for all this, this, and this after the fact. You need to have that up front. So that's why, you know, anytime I'm doing a commercial job, I send them a quote. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's what you're going to get. You know, you're going to get 20 photos, you know, as digital files, and you know that's what it comes. You know, that's it. You're not getting 30 photos. You're getting 20 photos. They're, you know, are they going to be toned? You know, all that stuff that you think about or you don't think about. But you know, if you shoot a wedding and you know you shot 800 photos. Well, you know, 800 photos, not all of them are going to be great. You know, if you're like me, at least 200 of them belong in the trash, right? So if people expect, I've mentored many photographers who have said, well, I went and shot this event and they saw me shooting all day and I gave them 100 photos and they said, where are the rest of them? Well, the rest of them sucked, and they didn't have any agreement up front. How many photos are you going to get? You're sure not going to give them everything. You're not going to just hand them your card and say, here, look at all the bad photos I shot, right? You're gonna want to edit them. You're gonna want to do something to it, and so that has to be in your paperwork. That has to be, how many photos are you delivering? Pretty simple. I'm going to give you 200 photos.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they wanted all the pictures because they gave me the money. So don't they get the pictures?
Right.
And they wanted the digital files too.
Right.
So like, okay, if you get the digital files, you could go to Walmart and pick up your own pictures then. It's like, why would I give them digital files?
Well, unfortunately, digital files now become the reality that you almost have to give them to them. But if you don't tone them first and you hand them some raw digital files and some of them are bad and they have them printed at Walmart and they look like crap, who are they going to blame? Walmart? No, right. The photographer. Oh, there's a crappy photo. Yeah. I shoot some crappy photos, but I don't show anybody the crappy photos. So, if I'm shooting an event, here's how many photos you're getting. So.
Yeah. Thanks.
You bet. Okay, let's move on if we can here. So, one of the things you need to do is figure out how you're going to accept money. I highly recommend getting a separate bank account for your photo business, even if you're only planning on making $10 a month. Go to a credit union. They're free. I love credit unions. No fees, no monthly fees. Why not? And I use PayPal and Square. No monthly fees either on that. PayPal tends to work better for my website, for products that I sell on my website for photos. So I just link my website to PayPal. They take the credit card money, take their 3% cut, or it's 2.75, whatever it is, cost of doing business. And then I can get my money. Square has a mobile reader that plugs into your phone. It's great. PayPal has one too. I like Square's better, so I use Square for mobile. I also use Square for my payroll for my employees. So all of that goes right through. The employees can put their time card in through Square. Every 2 weeks, I have to just approve it, and boom, they take care of the taxes. They take care of all the junk that I don't want to have to think about, and it doesn't cost very much, or I wouldn't use them because I'm a cheap bastard. But you have to have a way to take credit cards because that's how people buy things. So you want to be able to take it over the phone. You want to be able to take it in person. If we ever see anybody in person again, you want to be able to take it through a website. Okay. So I have an official business now. I've got all that junk set up. Now what? Well, very important. Any successful business has a business plan, and it can be pretty simple. It just comes down to answering basic 8 questions. If you're overwhelmed by a business plan, contact your local Small Business Administration, SBA. They have retired volunteers who will hold your hand through the whole thing. Former businessmen and women who love setting up businesses and creating business plans, and they will just walk you through it. Even if they don't know the photography business, a basic business plan. What problem are you solving for your customers? How are you doing that? How do you make money? Who's your target market? Extremely important. Who's your customer? How many of them are out there? What competitive advantage do you have or disadvantage? What's your management team? If you're like most photographers, it's you. And what skills do you have or lack? Very important. What's your cost of business going to be? What's your profit margin? Do you need funding? It's that simple, but you need to answer those questions. You need to have that stuff written down, because if you don't plan, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's what they say, and it's nothing truer than a business plan. But for me, I think even more important is having a marketing plan. I'm just a huge believer that marketing is 90% of it. And the key to a marketing plan is figuring out who your target market is. Who is your ideal customer? I sell large scale, high-end fine art prints that cost thousands of dollars, right? So I know my ideal customer are couples in their 50s, empty nesters with at least 2 homes. I need people who aren't afraid to spend a lot of money and have the wall space to do it. That's why if they have 2 homes, they probably have the walls, they have the money. My gallery is in the 5th richest county in the country, not by accident. And when I do art shows, I only go to very high-end areas, Westport, Connecticut, the Hamptons, Stowe, Vermont, places where people don't even think about spending money. It's true. You run into some who, will walk in and go, oh my God, look how much that costs, and walk out. But, it's amazing how many people will walk in, and in my art show booth, I don't put prices on the wall so I don't scare people. And that way I have something to talk to them about. But I'll have people buy a $1,500 photo, not even ask how much it costs. That's a 60-inch print, I'll take it. Okay, okay, really? So I don't do art shows where they're craft shows. If there's people selling $15 yard ornaments, I'm not going to sell a $2,000 print. And so I get some people from outside my demographic, but the bulk of my sales are to moneyed couples. That's my market, right? When I started a dog portrait studio, who's my market? People with dogs, right? How do you find people with dogs? I went to several surrounding towns and got the list of all the people who had dog licenses, created a database, did mailings, target marketing. Why would I buy an ad in anything other than a pet magazine for my area, right? So I did 5 different mailers, sent one each month. Boom, I had customers coming in the door like crazy, right? And so every year I updated it and did more mailings. There's a lot of public records for things, got to get a marriage license, public record, pretty easy to find who's getting married, right? If you're doing real estate, real estate transactions, public records. I used to do work for a very high-end company that did home theaters, very high-end home theaters. They're the ones who taught me this. They would go to the county every week and see who was building a house worth more than $1 million. And then they would contact the builder, the owner, and the decorator. That's how they found their customers. Marvelous, marvelous. So if you're doing real estate, if you want to do real estate pictures, boom, that's a way to do it. If they're remodeling a house, they have to have a license, have to have a permit, get a copy of the permits, tells what they're doing. So there's lots of ways. You can buy mail lists, good for mailing. Be careful if you're buying email lists, unless you're using a service to email them, because if you send out tons of emails through your domain, your website, it can get blacklisted, and then you'll get blocked. A lot of your emails will get blocked. So you have to be a little bit careful with that. But figure out who your market is. You have to define your brand. What makes you stand out? Is it elegance? Is it punk? Is it high energy? Is it laid back? Is it colorful? Is it monotone? Do your photos make people feel excited, relaxed, surprised? What's your style? So you must tightly define your brand and get that message out. So my fine art photography is nature-based. And when people see my photos, they frequently say how calming the photos make them feel, right? That's what I'm selling them, a way to feel calmer. I'm not selling pictures. I'm selling the feeling those pictures create. I don't talk to potential customers about the technical aspects of the photo. I talk to them about how that makes them feel, how the colors match their mood of their house, what room they can put it in. Rarely does it get down to the technical stuff because people don't care. They want to know how that feels. So, I'm selling the sizzle, not the steak, as they say. And, anytime that you can sell feeling rather than product, you're going to do better. And that's what the beauty of photography is, you know, how's this making you feel? You know, I ask people that all the time. How's that photo make you feel? They'll tell me. So what is your position in the market? This is extremely important. Do you want to be high end? Do you want to be middle of the road? Do you want to be expensive? Inexpensive? Cheap, right? So if you think about department stores, Nordstroms is on the high end, Sears and Penney on the middle, Walmart on the low end, right? What do you know about Sears and Penney? Penney filed for bankruptcy on Friday, right? Sears, how many Sears stores are left? So if you're stuck in the middle, you're stuck. You need to either be high end or low end. So if you want to go high end, you're going to sell fewer items, fewer whatever, photo sessions, prints, whatever you're selling, you're going to sell less of them, but for more money. If you're on the low end, you're going to charge less, but you're going to sell a lot more to make up for that. Neither one's right or better. It depends on what you're selling, what your market is, where you're at, where you can be, but don't get stuck in the middle. Don't think, oh, I can be just under the most expensive guys. No, you can't. Or I can be just a little above the cheap guys. No, you can't. Think about Sears and Penney. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. So you've got to figure out which you want to be. High end, not sell as much. Low end, sell more. You know, Walmart makes more money than Nordstroms. I'd rather be Nordstroms, but Walmart makes more money than Nordstroms, right?
Loren, a question. When I was in graduate school, we did case studies on Sears. Sears was the terrific corporation in the country. Now, granted, this was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. They went bad. Both of those stores went bad because they didn't take advantage of the internet, in my opinion. Do you really consider them low end or intermediate end? I always thought Sears was low end, frankly, and was the leader for Walmart type places.
They were the low end until Walmart came along and showed them how to do it even cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
There are those who could claim that Walmart's the reason we have the coronavirus here, because they are the ones who literally demanded companies build things in China so they could get a price low. So, you know, now Walmart's the low end, Sears and Penney had to move up to the middle because they couldn't compete on the low end, and then they couldn't compete on the high end, and then they couldn't compete. So it's the same with photographers. You know, when I first started doing art shows, I was selling like 24 by 36 inch prints was my biggest, and $450. And I'd go to these shows and I'd sell 2 or 3. You know, that's not worth it. And I'd see guys or gals across the way selling $5,000 40 by 60 inch plexi prints, and they'd sell 8 or 10 of them. And I sold 4 $450 prints. And I'm thinking, okay, are their photos a lot better than mine? No, most of them weren't as good. You know, people love what I'm doing, but I was in the wrong spot. I wasn't on the cheap end, and I wasn't on the high end. So I decided to go to the high end, and my sales went crazy. Selling the same damn photos for a lot more money, or a lot bigger size, and suddenly, boom, sales go. Now I've been to shows where people are selling $25 prints and they're selling, you know, dozens of them, but you know, I don't want to have to make 100 11 by 14s to make up for the price of one 40 by 60. I'd rather sell 140 by 60 than 111 by 14s, but that's the market I've gone after, and that means I have to go to, you know, find the customers that will buy that kind of stuff. You know, if I was trying to do that in where I grew up in northern Indiana, I wouldn't sell a damn thing because nobody's got that much money, you know, and they'd never spend $2,000 on a photo to hang on their wall. But, you know, I know where those people are now. So So, you know, one thing is, you know, quality is important. And how do consumers usually know high quality? Well, with photography, you know, once you're at a certain point, how do you tell the difference between the quality? And I'm a firm believer that once a certain level of quality is reached, consumers can't tell when better quality is, you know, when something's better just based on observation. What they really rely on is the price. If something costs more, it must be higher quality, right? You know, I have this discussion with my wife a lot. Hey, wait, if that only costs that much, it can't be that good. You know, do you know the difference between a $15 bottle of wine and a $100 bottle of wine? I don't, but I'm going to figure that $100 must be higher quality. You know, and that's the reason I sell more $2,000 photos than I do $500 photos. Must be higher quality. I'm going to pay more. You know, I mean, and I love going after those clowns who you know, are just happy to tell their friends, oh yeah, I paid $2,000 for that photo. You know, my friends go, what a freaking idiot. You know, their friends go, oh man, he must have a lot of money. So, you know, if that's, you know, so that's where I think it comes from. But part of marketing is creating that marketing plan. And part of the marketing plan is answering these questions. You know, this is just a very simple marketing plan. If you just figure out this, well, what's the specific product you're doing? And you know, in one sentence, to describe your product or service and what it does for the users. Who's your target market? How's it different? What's the benefit? You know, how does your product benefit the customer? That's the key. You know, does it make them feel better? Does it make them feel relaxed? Does it make them excited? Is it, you know, they love color? They, you know, are you doing portraits? You know, whatever it is. What's your marketing strategy? What's your pricing, which we'll talk about more here? How are you going to get that marketing message across? What kind of creative are you going to use? You know, what kind of, are you going to do mailers? Are you going to rely on social media? What kind of, you know, media are you going to use? And then how can you measure those results and keep testing? And so, you know, I love marketing strategy, coming up with a plan that's actionable with achievable goals on a timeline, right? And you have to have a timeline. So my whole premise in marketing is from the old blues song, many fish bites if you use got good bait. I love that. You know, if you have good bait, they're going to bite. And so, you know, many marketers say you need to get your message in front of a person 7 times before they'll act. If you send a mailer once, you'll get very little response, probably 0. You need to do it multiple times. You need to be in front of them multiple times to get results. And it comes down to what kind of marketing do you do? And I cannot list all the ways you're going to market your work. There are plenty of websites out there to help you with that. But I know there's one thing that you must have, and that's a website. And for photographers, it has to be a professional looking website. It has to display your work. It has to be free of typos, and it has to have a call to action. When you tell people what to do, they do it. It's amazing. So your website is your portfolio. It's your instruction or your introduction to yourself. It's your calling card. It's your business card. It's your main point of contact. And it has to represent who you are and what you do in the best possible way. And it must have strong content that has a sense of who you are and your work. If it looks cheap, you will be thought of that way. If it's full of typos, you're presenting that you don't take care of details. If the design is from 2003, you present that you really don't care how you look, and that is bad. So first, you know, you have to have a unique logo that is unique. You might hire a designer for this, but you know, it could be just your name. It could be your company name. You know, a lot of designers, or some designers will trade services. You know, they need a photographer or something. You need a designer. Okay, we'll trade. You know, I do it. I've done lots of trading over the years. You might have heard earlier that I'm a cheap bastard. That's why I know about Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, where you can find pretty much anybody to do pretty much anything someplace in the world for $5. They will design you a logo for $5. They will create commercials for you for $5. And sometimes they're great, sometimes they suck. But if they suck really bad, you're out $5, right? I've used them for all kinds of things. And they're, you name it, somebody's doing it on Fiverr for $5, right? It is crazy. But if you need a logo made, you go on there, there'll be people advertising for $5. If you need 2,000 Facebook followers or Twitter followers, Fiverr will get you 2,000 Twitter followers within 2 or 3 days for $5. It's crazy, but it's a great place to get things. You know, I've built over 50 websites, and no, I won't make one for you unless you make an offer I won't refuse, because now I'm only doing photography. But if you have someone else create your site, make sure that you can update it. You have to be able to update it. You don't want to depend on somebody else to do updates for you in a timely fashion. It will kill you. You know, if you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks for somebody to do something for your website. There are lots of ways there are lots of platforms out there that do websites for you. One of my favorites is Photo Shelter. I just noticed in chat, somebody said that if anybody's feeling less cheap, she's a graphic designer who also does logos. So there you go. So photoshelter.com will create a website for you. They will do fulfillment, which means if you put your photos on there, they have photo labs as part of it. So you get an order, the order goes to the photo lab along with your photo. They make the print. They will either send it to you and you give it to the client, or they'll drop ship it direct to the client.
Is it photoshelter.com?
Photo Shelter, yes. PHOTOSHELTER, shelter, as in sheltering in place. So, but they make it easy to update it too. So you can just go online, and there's lots of other places that do a similar thing. Just like those guys, I have no affiliation with them. It's created by photographers, run by photographers. They care about photographers, and we'll even talk about them more later. But your website has to make it easy to contact you. Send you an email, send you a text, phone, whatever, however you're going to do it. And you need to make it easy to buy prints. And this is where Photo Shelter really comes in handy. There's other fulfillment services, but if you're selling prints, why not? If you're doing photography, why not make it easy for people to buy prints off your website? Now, I will tell you that if you put up a website and you expect people to come to it and buy prints, you're sadly mistaken. Okay, you're sadly mistaken, because you have to drive traffic to your site. If you Google anything, there's 18 million replies, possibilities. And if your website doesn't come up on the first page, 80% of people don't go to the second page. 80% don't go to the second page. So you either have to be great at search engine optimization, or you have to pay them. Pay Google. They got us. They got us worse than Adobe does. But you have to drive traffic to your site some way. The number one way is to become an expert. And what expert means is loosely defined, but whatever type of photography you're doing, if you write a blog, and a blog doesn't need to be something complex. If you write a blog and twice a week post something, that gives people a reason to come back to your website. And if people don't have a reason to come back, they're not coming back. They have to have a reason. So if you're doing child portrait photography, you might also write for a local mom site about how to take pictures of your kids at Halloween. Become an expert. Write stuff for other websites so that you become an expert in whatever niche you're going after. If you're just putting it out there that I'm a photographer, come buy photos from me, nobody's buying photos from you. But if you get a niche and become an expert in that niche, and an expert only means that you need to know more than whoever's buying the photos, right? You don't have to know more than everybody else in the world. You just have to know more than whoever's buying the photos. Now, the higher you get on, if there's 10 million people and you're, number 300 on how much well, you've got 300 customers there. When you get up to 3,000, now you've got 3,000 potential customers. When you get up to 300,000, you've got more as you become more of an expert. But you got to become an expert right away, no matter what you're doing. And, part of that is, having, getting ranked on Google. There's nothing more important than that. There's two ways: either you pay, or it's organic, and that means they find you through the search engine. You have to do keywording. That is a world of business in itself. I'm kind of good at it though, because I've done a lot of websites. So if you do a search for Vermont fall foliage photography, I'll probably come up number 2 behind USA Today. But if you just do a search for photographers, I'm nowhere to be found, right? You search photographers, you're not gonna find me, right? So you have to, you have to be able to define what you want to be found for. And part of that is your target marketing. Part of that is, what is it that I'm special at? And special is a loose term. None of us think we're special, but we are. And it comes down to, how can we get people to look for what we're looking for? And part of that is also analytics, meaning you have to know where your customers are, where they came from, and what they're looking at. So I have an old laptop running in my office, and Google has a free analytics program that shows you who's coming to your website, where they're coming from, real-time results. So at any moment I can see I can see how many people are on my website right now, what pages they're looking at, where they live. I can't tell who they are, and I don't have their email address, but I can see what's being viewed and where that viewer is located. I know, after I send out my email newsletter, I know that I get a big hit on traffic on my website, and I can see exactly what things in my email newsletter got people to click to go to my website. And that helps me with my marketing and just knowing what people are looking for, and just knowing what they want and what they need is critical. It's just critical. So there's a big difference between marketing and advertising. Marketing is free, kinda, and advertising is paid. So buying space in a city magazine is an ad. That costs money. If you get the magazine to do a story on your business, on your photography, that is marketing, and it's essentially free. And it doesn't matter if you're doing advertising or marketing. If you've got the money to do advertising, go for it, but it still needs to be targeted. But the point is, you need to let people know about your business and what it can do for them. Advertising is fast. You create an ad, you throw it up on Google, you pay your money, it runs, and clicks will start coming. Marketing usually takes more time. So does paid advertising work? You bet, or there wouldn't be ads, right? But the key is highly targeted advertising. If I was to buy a spot on a TV station in New York for, if I was a wedding photographer, that'd be a huge waste of money. It cost me tens of thousands of dollars, and would I get anybody? Maybe not. But would it make sense to do an ad on the local cable company, only on the wedding channel? You bet. You bet. I have a mentoring client whose main target is bar and bat mitzvahs, which I know nothing about, but her synagogue has a quarterly newsletter that accepts ads. What a perfect location to advertise, So, she told me about that. I said, "You're buying ads in that, right?" She goes, "No." As soon as she did, boom. A lot of smaller publications will do a story on you if you buy enough ads, which, a legitimate newspaper won't do that, probably, but you can always ask. But, sometimes there's that ability to do paid advertising and get marketing out of it. Anytime you can double up, you're doing more better, as I like to say. So is social media crucial? Well, that depends on your market, but the answer is probably, yep. If your market is senior citizens, then probably not. But if you're doing weddings, it'd be tough to find a bride who isn't on social media, right? So you have to just figure out which one, and use just one or two and just focus on one or two. So if young women are your target, Pinterest might be good because, you know, Pinterest is 80% female users. Pinterest would be horrible for a 60-year-old man, right? You know, whatever's the latest thing. Facebook has gotten pretty tricky. You know, you should have a business page on Facebook, but they have changed their formula, so they now downplay business pages unless you pay them to boost it, which sucks. But if you're buying ads on Facebook, you can target, you know, I want to have people who live in these towns who make this much money, who are of this age, who don't have kids, see my ad. That's targeted marketing. You know, those can really work. You know, if you're shooting sports teams, you know, youth sports, yeah, it's pretty easy to find, you know, what people on Facebook like sports. Facebook knows that. So does Google, by the way. So sometimes with, and it depends on the platform, on how you pay. Some of them it's pay per click, so you don't pay anything until they click and go to your site. Some of them it's just you put up an ad and you pay a monthly fee, and doesn't matter if anybody clicks or not, you're paying the fee. I worked Instagram really hard 2 years ago. I was just pounding it. I'll admit it, I used Fiverr to buy 3,000 Instagram accounts. So 2 days after I decided I was going to hit Instagram hard, I had 1,000 of my own and 3,000. So I had 4,000 to 5,000 followers within 2 days, right? Were they real? No, but it looked good. But as I kept building up my Instagram, I was watching my analytics on my website, and I was getting zero clicks from Instagram to my website. Now, do some people see my things on Instagram and know my name and do a search rather than click through Instagram to get to me? Maybe. But the work I was putting in on Instagram, an hour or so a day, which is, you know, 20% of my business day, maybe not that much, just wasn't paying off. And so I rarely do anything on Instagram anymore because it just didn't pay. So, you know, you need to watch when you're putting all that effort into social media, is it getting you any results? You know, somebody clicking a like button on Facebook does me absolutely no good. You know, I put things on my Facebook page now and again, and, you know, I'll get 75 likes. Well, my ego doesn't need that. You know, doesn't do me a bit of good. If they're not buying something, you know, if they're not coming to my website and buying something, doesn't do me a bit of good. So let's talk about pricing. Holy crap, the worst thing there is, pricing. Oh, how much do you charge? Well, it comes down to
Loren,
two things.
can I just ask a quick question?
Sure, thank you.
Do you think that even though you're not generating sales from your social media, that you still need it sort of to back up your website? Well, for example, I've been on both your website and your social media, your Instagram. And I don't know, do you think it legitimizes your business, even if the social media isn't generating business?
Yeah, I think you have to have a presence.
Yeah,
now,
okay.
I think my presence, would you tell me, what did you think when you saw my Instagram?
Yeah, so for me, I
honest.
know you're already a professional photographer. It just sort of legitimized the fact that, that you are a professional photographer, and you can tell that your photos are really well edited. And so, yeah, for me, even knowing all about you, I think so.
But if you didn't have a presence on Instagram, would you lose business? Probably not.
I don't know if you lose business. I think it helps. So, you know, what I did was I don't know how many photos I have on there now, 500. You know.
Do you have the ability to track how much business comes from Instagram? Can you say this customer came from Instagram?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly how many people came from Instagram to my website.
Okay.
Per day, per month, per week, per year, whatever. But I can't tell, you know, one of the things about advertising is branding. You know, you see these commercials on TV for Coca-Cola or beer or whatever, and they don't say, you know, all they do is make you feel good. They don't try to sell you anything, and they're just selling the brand. I think that some of that is valid on Instagram and Facebook. I think that, you know, so when you looked at my Instagram, did you notice I hadn't posted anything in 6 months?
No.
Okay, so good. So it used to be very easy to upload right out of Lightroom to Instagram. There was a plugin you could just click and boom, and it went right up. You had to type in the keywords and stuff, but it was just crazy easy. Facebook had shut it off the year before. They shut it off for Instagram last year. You can't do that anymore. It now is very hard. I mean, now it takes time to upload. So I don't do it anymore. My fear is, you know, as these pictures become stale, as people look at them over and over, the same pictures, then, you know, so yes, should I put more pictures on Instagram? Yes, maybe. But, you know, it's tough. So any other questions on social media I meant to ask before I jumped out of there?
Yeah, I just have one more question. So you said earlier that if you post a photo on Instagram or Facebook, they have the right to sell it. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so even the photos that you're selling professionally, they could sell them?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
And again, you have that liability that he mentioned, that if they misuse it for a druggie or something, it's on you.
Well, it's a little bit different than what my friend went through, in that there's a reasonable expectation that if I put if somebody grabs that photo off of any website or Facebook resells it, that they won't misrepresent it. So you might be able to go back and fight them, but you're going to have to fight, you know, which means hiring lawyers, which means spending a hell of a lot of money. So that's another reason. That's another reason that I don't do Instagram a lot. Is you know, it really bothers me. I mean, it scares the crap out of me, actually. And so you know, that's you know, but it's a risk that I have to take, I think, to a certain degree. I don't put many people photos on either of those platforms. Just, you know, it's mostly my pretty pictures. If somebody, you know, I'm not worried about them taking the photo off of Instagram and making a 40 by 60 inch print. That ain't going to happen because it's not going to hold up, you know. So, you know, that is my main, you know, print wise, you know, I'm going for big prints. They can't make big prints off of it. They can sell a lot of little prints, or, you know, I'm guessing I have photos that have been stolen off of Instagram and are for sale in a bin in China somewhere for, you know, $2. I don't know that, but I'm sure there are.
Sure.
But, you know, there's no 40 by 60 floating around over there, or else they're really, really crappy. So, pricing. So we talked about where you want to be in the market. So one thing I'll tell you, though, don't think you can start as the cheapest and move your prices up, because your existing clients won't go with you, and you're starting all over with your marketing. So if you're doing assignment work, there are some guides out there to help you with suggested prices. Some of these are paid, PhotoBiz and BlinkBid. You know, it's essentially a service. You buy it and software, and you put in what usage the photo is going to have, and it'll tell you what they think the average sale price is. Photo Shelter has a guide that you can download to pricing. Again, most of this is assignment or corporate work, not you know, if you're taking baby pictures and selling prints, that's not going to help you. But you can easily figure out what's the going price for weddings by looking at other wedding photographers in your area, or if you're doing portrait work, you know, what's everybody else charging, and then you figure out where you want to be in the market, and even more importantly, how much money do you need to make, or how much money do you want to make? And that should be part of your business plan. And first, what you have to do is figure out what is your cost of doing business. And nppa.org/calculator has a calculator to help you with this. Now, this is for assignment work, but it's good for any cost of doing business. And here's a screenshot of it. And don't cheat yourself. Fill out every field. And so you figure out, what's it going to cost me to do business? You know, if I'm paying rent, if I have a cell phone, if, you know, do I have to upgrade my computer? Whatever, you know, how much is postage going to cost me a year? Now, of course, it's estimates, but, you know, how much taxes, you know, everything. How much is it going to cost me to do business? And then you figure out how much money you want to make or need to make. And that will tell you how much you can charge. So if you are want to do weddings and you want to make $40,000 a year in profit, and you think you can do 20,000 wedding or 20 weddings in a year, and your cost of doing business is $10,000, then you have to make at least $1,500 a shoot, a wedding, to get those numbers. So 40,000 divided. So if it's, you know, if your cost of doing business is 10,000, you know, 20 weddings. So, you know, if you're shooting real estate and you want to make $10,000 and your cost of business is $2,500 a year, and you think you can do 50 shoots a year, so your rate is going to be $250 a shoot, which is $12,500, which is your cost of doing business on top of your income, divided by 50 equals 250, right? So that will tell you how much you need to charge as a minimum. So the main variable there is how much can you sell? You know, can you do 50 real estate shoots the first year? You're damn good if you can.
That's like one a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly, it's one a week, and your income is you know,
12,500.
250 a week, right? So, yeah, exactly. So, can you charge more? Yeah, depends where you are. Not likely. On real estate, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe if you have a drone.
Well, yeah. You're not going to make a living shooting drone photos. I'll tell you that right now.
No, but you can charge more if you have a unique ability, like drones, or I don't know what else would be, but you know, working with people who do what's it called, where they set everything up, staging.
Staging, absolutely.
Like that. Bring that
absolutely.
stuff in.
Absolutely. The more add-ons you can have, the more you can charge, you know. And a drone, if you're doing real estate, is an add-on, you know. So one thing you're going to hear from people. Yeah,
could you post the website for that calculator again?
Yep, nppa.org/calculator.
Okay.
Oh, he's in the event. Hold on.
And be ruthless when you get in there. Don't cheat yourself.
Yep.
It's easy to like, I know I can do 50 shoots a year. Yeah, not the first year. So one thing you're going to hear from people, and I guarantee it is, shoot this one for me cheap and I'll bring you lots more business. And I'll just tell you right now, that is pure bullshit. So my line right away is, okay, I'll tell you what, you pay me my rate for this one, and on the next one, I'll give you a discount. The next one after that, I'll give you a bigger discount. Never, you know, just do this one free and I'll have lots more that are paid. Nope, if you do one free, they know you'll do it free. And if you won't the next time, they'll find somebody else who will. So don't start out cheap and hope you get more later. It won't happen. It just does not happen.
The famous exposure currency. This will bring you lots of exposure.
Yes, and that is, you know, that is worthless, absolutely worthless, you know. And I, you know, I hear that all the time. Oh yeah, you know, we'll give you a byline. And I said, can I send that byline to my mortgage company? You know, that will, you know, it does you absolutely zero good, none. Never has, never will. Yep, lots of exposure. So something we don't like to talk about is selling, and especially when we're selling ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why I say set up your photography as a business, your brand. Then you're selling your brand, not yourself. And you know, not many people are good at selling themselves, but they can sell something else, sell somebody else's brand. So if you think of your photography as selling a brand, you know, it's not like you're bragging about yourself. You know, photos don't sell themselves, they're sold. And if you're scared about talking about money with people, time to be brave, right? You can't be brave unless you're scared, right? So you have to be able to confidently present yourself as a business owner, let them know what things cost, and not apologize for it. I sell prints to people that I would never pay that much money for. I mean, I'm a cheap bastard, right? You know, people come in and will buy things that I'm like, every time I go, oh my God, I can't believe they bought it. But they cannot tell that when I'm talking to them. You know, I am pure confidence that this is worth every penny you're paying for it and more, and you're going to love it for the rest of your life, you know, no matter what it is. But if they, you know, if they come in thinking, you know, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure that you're going to want to pay this much money. They're not. But holy cow, isn't this worth it? You know, so you know, if you sell the benefit and the value and not the price, you'll go a lot farther, right? So it's always selling the benefit and the value. I don't talk about price. I talk about value. This is what, you know, this is what the value is for you. And that is a huge difference in mentality for both the seller and the buyer. Now, I don't ever try to talk anybody into buying something they don't want. That's not who I am. It's not what I want. If people are, you know, if they are on the edge, I'm gonna help them make their decision. You know, I'm gonna ask for the sale. I mean, it's a fine line between helping people make a decision and pushing people. But usually if you don't ask, they won't buy, right? If you're selling prints, you need to have different sizes to show them. People can't visualize the difference between an 8x10 and 11x14. Show them more and you'll sell more. If you're doing a photo session, have them pick the photos right after you shoot. You know, when I had the dog studio, I sold, you know, I started out, yeah, I'll put photos online, then you can go online and see them, and then you can pick which ones you want to buy. And I wasn't selling much. So then I figured out a way, and it ended up being as simple as Lightroom, to show them the photos right away. Boom, I'm going to show you right now. Let's go over them. Let's see which ones you want. People are excited during the shoot. They're willing to buy. They're fired up. You know, when they go out the door, you know, their spouse is going to say, you don't need that many prints. Or they're going to say, well, I shouldn't buy that much. But they'll buy a hell of a lot more while you're right there, because you can ask for the sale. And, you know, and it can be as simple as, you know, do you want to buy that? You know, I usually don't ask yes or no questions, but, you know, are you, you know, how would you like me to, you know, do you want to pay for that with a credit card or cash or check? And they'll go, oh yeah, credit card. Okay, get it out. Let's go. And, you know, if you know, it's okay to post photos then afterwards also and have them come back and buy more, but and leave them up for a long time. But if you can sell them in person, you'll do a lot more. Wedding photographers, the best ones, don't post the photos online until they've had a session where they sit down with the bride and groom and show them the photos. So you want to sell in face as much as you can, or face to face as much as you can. Now, with Corona, is that going to make it a little tougher? Maybe, but you know, set up a Zoom session with them so you can go over the photos and talk about how that one's looking and how it's making you feel and all of that. So one of the big questions is, do you give away the digital files? Well, for some things now, you have to. That's just become standard, the industry standard, like weddings. You have to give them the digital files. Does that mean you have to tone each one of them before you give it to them? Or do you give them the raw files? Damn, that's a tough question. You know, if your exposures are all over the place, you know, you want to give them the best files you can, because if they send them out to be printed and they look bad because you didn't tone them and the lab didn't bother to do it, it comes back on you. So I think if you're giving away digital files, you need to at least make them all consistent exposures and make the colors pop and whatever. So, you know, if you're doing assignment work, I think you have to give the digital files. You know, in the old days you didn't, but you're still better off trying to sell them prints and help them. You know, you're selling them the service of the prints, so they don't have to bother with making an album. They don't have to bother with getting the prints, have to decide what size to make. If you can help them with that, you're providing a service, you can charge for that and make more money. You know, you have to find a way to give them the digital files, because they all want it, because they want to put them on Facebook. And is that bad? No. So that is when I, you know, depending on what they're going to do with them. When I was doing the dog studio, I would give them 2 sets of photos. I'd give them a high res set that they can make prints off of. Then I'd give them a low res set, resized to put on social media. And I put my watermark on those. So when they put them up, at least people had my name and my website. So if they liked them, they could at least go to my website from that. If you just give them raw files and they put them up on, nobody's gonna know who you are or who shot them, you know, probably. So I think it's worth the time to make 2 sets and explain to them, you know, you don't want to put those full size ones up there because you know, it'll take you too long, or whatever excuse you want. These are already sized to fit perfectly on Facebook. So you just drag and drop and throw it up there and you're good. So any thoughts on that?
Hey, Loren, let me ask you a question. So have you ever considered selling just one copy of a print and making that the only one, and therefore charging extra money for it?
No. Have I considered it? Yes. I do limited edition prints. I limit my editions to 100 of the photo.
So they're all numbered?
Yes. Signed and numbered. Unless you are a famous fine art photographer, buyers don't give a crap. They don't care about that. And you know, I'm not in that world of the high-end fine art photographers, you know, as I call them, the snobs of New York. I mean, there are people who, you know, actually I have a fairly good friend here in Vermont who does just marvelous flower photos that he digitally enhances, and they look like, you know, the first time I saw him at an art show, I thought they were all paintings. And he prints them himself. He has a special printer he devised, and he'll do a limited edition of 5, and he'll shoot a flower and combine 20 of them to make the photo, and they're just absolutely spectacular. And he'll do a limited edition of 5 or 6 or 10 and charge $8,000 to $10,000 for a you know, 40 by 60 print. And he has been able to get into the collector market. I'm not in the collector market.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, if you limit, you know, the more prints that are out there, the more you dilute the value.
Absolutely.
Right, over time. So if you can limit it, right, you can keep the prices up, you know, and maybe sell fewer, but you can get
if
a
the
higher
buyer
margin.
thinks there's value in that. And there's only value in that if they think it's going to resell at some point. So my friend Ron, who has a photo that he has sold, I don't know, 200,000, maybe $250,000 worth of prints, maybe more than that. He's had it out there for 10 years, and it just sells. I mean, and he's a salesman, but it just sells like crazy. He sold 2 40 by 60s last week. Well, you know, everybody's freaking locked up, you know. You know, if he would have limited his editions on that, you know, I mean, he's charging $3,000 for a 40 by 60. You know, are you going to be able to get 9,000 out of it? Or are you going to be able to get 15,000 out of it to make up for the quantity you lose? No. So, you know, unless you're in a market where you know you have collectors, and it takes collectors, that's a tough go. It's a tough go because you're limiting yourself, you know.
So what would be a typical number of prints that you would sell for a popular photograph? Would it be 10? Would it be, I mean, clearly there's some that are going to sell a lot and there are going to be others that, you know, 1 or 2, but is there a sort of a sweet spot, an average in there somewhere?
No, there's no numbers. My best-selling print, which I only do bigger than 36 by 48, I'm at number 40 on in the last, what, 4 years, 5 years.
Okay, that's all.
So, yeah. So as it gets, once that print though gets to number 80, the price goes up. When it gets to number 90, the price goes up. 91, the price goes up. 92, the price goes up. You know, so as it becomes more limited, and the higher number you buy of the limited edition, the more valuable they are. You'd think number 1 would be the most valuable, but it's the least. So that does happen, but you know, it's tough getting there because most people just don't care. Okay, so customer service. Customer service, nothing more important. You know, it should be your number 1 product. Do whatever it takes to make your customers happy, and you let them know that you're going to do whatever it takes. And that might mean refunds. You know, I can't tell you how much money I have given back to people because of this Corona thing. You know, my workshops, you know, it just frickin' hurts, and it's bad, but it's going to pay off in the long run. You know, if I was, you know, there are companies doing what I'm doing for workshops, and they say we'll give you a credit. Well, that just pisses people off, you know. So I'm taking a major financial hit, but in the long run, that's what I have to do. And because the number one thing for me is, you know, repeat customers. You know, they know about you. They should be your, you know, they'll tell their friends about you. You don't need to spend money on them. You know, you just keep on marketing to them. And I repeat customers should be your goal. You know, 80% of my workshop participants do more than 1 workshop. You know, my print sales, you know, people come back and back and back. When I'm doing the art shows, I get people that every year come back and will buy another Loren photo. Cool, I love that, right? My gallery hasn't been running long enough, and it's shut down right now to get much on the repeat, but I get a lot of word of mouth. You know, I sold a photo here in town to a guy. They came back with his wife. They bought another one. She's a real estate agent. She told one of her customers about me. He works at a hotel. The hotel bought 3 prints for their wall. The CEO, new CEO, came into town. He told him about me. I have 3 prints hanging on his wall. Repeat customers are just the way to go. And if you think about a wedding photographer, you know, first you shoot the engagement photo, then you shoot the wedding, then you shoot the newborn babies, then you shoot annual holiday portraits, then you do pet portraits, then you do school portraits, then you do a sweet 16 or bat mitzvah, then you do more weddings. You know, doesn't require much marketing at all. You know, no advertising, but you know, if anyone in that family thinks about photos, they're thinking of you. You know, if they're doing anyone, they're thinking of you. So that's what you have to get to. You know, it's if the more customer service you do, you know, the better you make people feel. You know, for my prints, I offer free shipping, and I'll come and install it. You know, any print bigger than 24 by 36, I'll come hang it on your wall for you. because when I walk in that door, I'm probably selling them another print too. But you know, I found out pretty early, one of the big stopping points for people is, well, how the hell we don't know how to hang that big 40-pound print on the wall. How do you do that? You know, do I have to pay somebody to come in and do that? Will they know how to do it? I'll do it for free. You know, you're paying me $2,000. I'll come over for 30 minutes and hang it on your freaking wall. You know, so anything that you can do to make people happy. So I see a question online. Do you sell any of your prints online on sites like Fine Art America? No. Reason being, they take a big cut of your profits, and it is, you know, look how many photos are on Fine Art America. You know, I mean, how do you rise to the top? It's just tough. Does it hurt to? No. There are plenty of sites that will charge you to place your photos on their site. Those aren't, you know, that can be bad. Could be good if you're getting sales, but a lot of them you just don't get any sales. If you don't have to pay to be on the site, doesn't hurt. Just keep your prices consistent. You know, if you have a website and you put them on Fine Art America, make sure your prices are the same, or even more on Fine Art America, so they can come to your website. You know, you want them coming to your website as often as possible. So,
Loren, when you give the photo, are they framed or what? You know, how do you give it to the person?
So yes. How are they? When I opened my gallery last year, I bought a 44-inch printer, and then I decided I needed to be able to frame, so I bought a frame store that went out of business. And I soon decided I don't want to be a framer, but I do custom. I have a frame maker in Philadelphia who does custom frames for me, and so yes, I will do framing, but I don't build the frames. I have them custom made for me, which means inventory. But because that's again, if I can do it and save the client the bother of doing it, yeah. So I'll sell them. You know, if you just want the print, I'll give you the print. But almost always they'll take the frame because the frames look great and they're not cheap. You know, so one thing we always have to think about is, how am I doing? And that means keeping track of everything financial, including your time. So I have a company directors meeting every Monday morning that lasts a maximum of 15 minutes. And at that meeting is the CEO and the department heads for advertising, sales, marketing, production, customer satisfaction, and logistics. And I don't like HR people, so they're not invited. So I go over these goals with all those people once a week, see what's working and what isn't. Now, I'm a small company, so I am the CEO, the department head for advertising, sales, marketing, production, customer satisfaction, and logistics. So I really do sit down with myself and have a weekly meeting, looking over my numbers, seeing what's working, what isn't, where I can make adjustments. I'm not just selling photos, it's a business. I have to run it like a business, so I'm doing well. Anytime that I get away from knowing what my numbers are, knowing how I'm doing, I get into trouble. And you know, I'm scrambling like hell right now to figure out how to morph my business, which is based on let's all get together for the next year when people aren't going to want to get together quite so much, and figure out what to do. So my directors meetings last a little more than 15 minutes a week now, but I have to figure out what's going on and how to know what I'm doing. So I am a big proponent in do it now. So we all have lots of excuses why we can't, but you'll never be completely ready. No matter what you're doing, you're never going to be completely ready. So you just need to get out there and start pushing your company. You need to set doable goals and timelines for each step, and set time aside each week. You know, no matter how busy you are, you know, maybe take a Monday night, and every Monday night is my photo business night. That's all I'm going to do. Tell the world I'm not available on Monday nights. This is what I'm doing. So you have to just put yourself out there. I'll tell you, everybody thinks they suck. You know, everybody thinks they are going to fail. Well, okay, fail. You know, that's no big deal. I can't tell you how many times I failed, but you know, we learn from our mistakes, and you're going to make some, and some of them will hurt, some of them won't. But if you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to do it, and you just can't. You know, you can't do it by yourself. You know, very often you need help. You don't have to do it by yourself. Use the resources that I talked about earlier. I just happen to have private mentoring and coaching available. You know,
The next question.
just happen to have that available. Yes. So, you know, you don't have to read the whole internet before you do anything, because, you know, the only person who's going to stop you is you. You know, you have the passion, you have the desire, you still wouldn't be on this call. You know, you have the ability to do what it takes. You just have to do it. And now's the time. Yeah, now's the time. No matter how bad the world seems right now, now's the time. There is opportunity out there. So that's pretty much it. Anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, my question was to do private sessions, and I'd like to do one with you.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that.
At some point, I'd like to do a private session with you.
Great. Great. Just drop me an email and we'll talk, and we'll do it. We'll base it on whatever your needs are, and we'll get you going.
Loren, can you speak about promotion? In other words, I know you've done, some things for free, to get your word out, to get people talking about you. I suspect you're doing it more actively now than in the past, but, how actively do you actually do that?
I don't do much free stuff at all now. A few years back when I first started doing weddings, I've never done weddings before, right? I didn't know how to shoot a freaking wedding. So I put the word out, and I found 3 or 4 weddings that needed a photographer at the last minute. And I did those free or stupid cheap, so I could build a portfolio quick. But right away, I started charging top dollar. I wasn't going to try to build up, start cheap and build my way up. As soon as I had a portfolio, it was, I want to be a top dollar photographer. I hated weddings. I just hated the mother of the bride is what the whole problem was.
Yeah, I know.
But so that wasn't for me. I don't do newborn photos. All babies look alike to me. They're all ugly, right? I don't, they're cute. No, they're cute. No, really, they're ugly.
You've done some workshops. You've done some workshops, for free on, and just invite people to, kind of listen in and participate. And, I think that helps a lot.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing a lot of free ones. And part of that is I know a lot of people are hurting, and taking the time off for an hour to listen to, whatever we're talking about this week, doing the chat hour every week, just get people's mind off of this bullshit going on around. And part of that is promotion. So it's finding a fine line of what am I going to give away versus what can I sell. And I've given away some workshop material here that I would usually sell. Is the truth. And is it going to pay off in the long run? Probably. But I've had this discussion with other photographers who say, you should never give away anything, which, is a theory.
But it's building relationships, which is probably more important.
Right. On the, I donate prints to charities for auctions. Does that do me any good? I haven't, I guess I've had one customer come in after seeing my photo at an auction, but I'm supporting the charity. Is that promotion or is that, public support? I think you have to give back.
It's both.
And so, that's one of my ways of giving back, but, the more you do for free, the less money you have in your pocket. I can tell you that. So.
That's true.
Yeah. Any other questions out there?
Loren, it's Pat again. I was asked to put some of my photography into Jewish Community Center, and they're framed. Do you put the price of the frame and the photo together, and you're saying not to go too high or too low, not in the middle? So this is my first time I'm actually you know, been asked to do this. So I was wondering what would be your, expertise on that.
So part of it is what's the income level of that community? Is it a high end, or is it a low end? And if it's in the middle, then you've got a tough decision to make. I can tell you that, I've heard a lot of people over the years say, yeah, this restaurant down the street has really good clients, and they want me to hang 3 or 4 of my photos in there and put my name on them and my price, and that doesn't work. You are giving them free decor. You're not going to sell anything at a restaurant because nobody's going to a restaurant to buy photos, right? So those kind of things sound like they should work. They rarely do. Now, does the Jewish Center, if you're supporting the Jewish Center and you want to have your work there so that the people that go there enjoy it, that's one thing. If you think you're going to make a lot of money off of sales there, you're not. Usually, there's always the exceptions, but there's also the theory: the more you have out there, the more reputation you build up. But if so, part of your pricing on that depends. Where do you want to be in the market? What can the market bear? And that's a tough decision. But don't be J.C. Penney, or you're gonna file for bankruptcy.
It's actually our photo club that was asked, and only a certain amount of photos were picked.
Yeah.
So we can sell them, or we can just show them so people know that we're a photo club here. So I was just wondering if you add the frame and the photo together, and how I should do that.
Well, absolutely. It's if you think of it more as what is the value of the photo than what is the cost to you. I hear people say, well, you figure out what your expenses are, then you charge 3 times that much. That's bullshit. It's figuring out what will the market bear and what is the value of your photo. And the club I have, meetup group I have in New Jersey, I do the same thing in an adult day center. We have an annual exhibit, and people can sell their work, and rarely do we, maybe one a year, maybe, and so the prices range from an 8x10 from $125 to $400. It's amazing at art shows. I'll sometimes just run a sale. I'll do a half price sale, and so my prints that are the print size is 16 by 24. They're in 24 by 32 inch mats, $179. One time I tried selling them for $50. $179 photos for $50. Guess how many I sold? 0. 0. So it told me it wasn't the price. And it's not because of the photos suck, I don't think. People tell me they like them, but it just wasn't the right size for what people were doing. So when I err on the high end, because usually the price doesn't matter. If somebody's going to pay $100 for something, they'll probably pay $200. They'll probably pay, if they're going to hang on their wall for years, you're going to pay $300. So error on the high end, and you look like you're the high end photographer. Then people who, do have the money will go for it. Or plan on selling a hell of a lot of them at $100. So,
okay, thank you.
Either way. So somebody's asking how much is my coaching. I do have a special going on till the end of middle of June. So it's on my website. lorenphotos.com under About Loren or under workshops, mentoring, coaching. All the details are there. What sizes are the most popular for prints? For me, I sell more 40 by 60 inch prints than I do any other size. How's that wrap your, just doesn't make a bit of sense. I've tried from 8 by 12, every size up, and I at shows and at my gallery, my main display prints are, like I said, 16 by 24 and 24 by 32 mats, and they mainly become my display of what photos I have available, because I can't hang 140 by 60s. But yeah, big for me sells better than small. Other people, small will sell a lot more than big. And it just depends where you are, who your market is. Do they have room to hang a big photo? That's that's the #1 stopper for people, or so they say. Anybody have anything else? If not, I thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope this was beneficial. If there was something you didn't get out of this that you thought you would, please drop me a note. I would love to hear that. And go out there and do it. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Loren.
Thanks, Loren. Thanks for putting this together. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Thank you
fun.
so much, Loren. Very
Thanks a lot.
informative.
Thank you, Loren.
Thank you, Loren.